and welcome to another episode of Tech Time Today. This is another in our series on deconstructing the lean canvas. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about your unfair advantage. What makes your product or service and what makes your company have an advantage over your competitors? In previous episodes, we talked about what the lean canvas is in general, a way to think about your app, think about your product. And we got into the problem, customer segments, the solution, the unique value proposition, all very important. Today, we're going to talk about something second from the right on the upper side here, the unfair advantage, something that cannot easily be bought or copied. The first and biggest thing I'm going to say on this topic is that, well, the first 5 things I've talked about for the lean canvas are extremely important, things you should focus on when you are initially building your app. This is one of the things from Lean Campus you seriously should not think about or care about until you achieve product market fit. It really, in my opinion, does not matter until you achieve product market fit. The reason is because so often the things that cause a product to fail aren't because of something your competitor is doing. It's something that you are not doing. You are not actually fulfilling a promise to solve a real problem. You are not actually identifying who you should be building for. You could almost build exactly the same thing as another company with no difference in no competitive advantage whatsoever. If you can work towards meeting those goals, you will get customers, you will get users if it fulfills a promise, even if it's almost exactly the same, maybe with like a slight tweaks. Now, I'm not saying you should copy things, but just, as an FYI, there's a lot of businesses that, I'm not saying you do this or whatever, but just so you, like, the mindset you should have, there are like many businesses out there that literally just copy what other successful companies are doing and tweak it a little bit. It's like a very common model that can be successful when you do it in a certain way. Not saying that you do that. But I'm just saying that because you should get out of your mind that before you achieve product market fit, when you're just iterating on figuring what to do, that you have to figure out, oh, I have to be different than this other guy. I have to like distinguish myself. No, don't care about your competitors. Competitors don't exist. Other than they do, you want to get some ideas and that type of thing, sure. But they don't exist in terms of worrying about that you have to like be different than them. You just have to focus on solving the problem. Okay. All right. Now, once you do that, once you have product market fit and you go into growth mode, that's something different. So the scenario where this becomes very relevant is that you have users. You've identified all the different stuff. All the other parts of the lean canvas have been somewhat settled, and you're in growth mode. So now it's there's always going to be some level of innovation. There's always going to be some constant iteration of all the other parts of lean canvas. But on the scale of things, most of what you're doing is on growing rather than building the core. The core is already there, and it's somewhat settled. Like you feel confident about that. Okay. So when that is the case, then you can start to think about, okay, what distinguishes us? Because as you enter growth mode, typically, initially, it doesn't matter as much. There's so many users out there. It's more about the channel. It's more about other things that we'll discuss in terms of marketing. But at some point, you get to the part of, okay, now people are directly comparing this and that, comparing us to other companies, and it's good to have. It's helpful to have an unfair advantage. And once you achieve success, like I mentioned, that a lot of people copy people that have success. Once you achieve success, that's probably the most important thing. It's not you distinguishing from other people per se. It's actually preventing other people who start from, like, it took you 2 years to achieve product market fit and build up a base. You certainly don't want somebody who just starts and in 1 week to get to the same exact level and be competing with you, right? So once, as soon as you achieve product market fit, it is good to start to think about like, okay, what are the things that will solidify our position and prevent those, like, just any random person from jumping in and doing the exact same thing in a much shorter period of time. Like, I did all the hard work and they're just like able to yoink, take everything. That's where it matters. All right, so 5 common categories of unfair advantages that I'm going to talk about: patents, expert endorsements, network effects, community, and brand. So patents is the easy one to get out of the way initially, because for most people, you shouldn't care about this and you shouldn't use this as an unfair advantage. Patents are expensive. I do have patents myself for some of the stuff we've done. Is it worth it? Most of the time it's not. Expert endorsements for sure help people when they are comparing products and they see that all of their friends or the people they trust endorse your product over another one. That matters. For networking effects, Facebook or a social app in general is a good example of network effect, that people have all of their friends on this particular social app, and so that's why they use it, and they're not going to use some other social app even if that the features and the software is better, because all of their friends are over here and it's a pain to get. It's not just me moving, it's all my friends. That's where a network effect is. So some products this works, some it doesn't. And that's separate from community. Community is slightly different. So community is something where you build and you nurture a community within your product. So it can happen in different ways. Let's say, for example, Webflow. So Webflow is a CMS tool for building websites. Okay. But it's geared towards power users, towards developers or designers, people who are good at, have a little bit more technical expertise. And there is definitely a community that they've nurtured, that, people that use Webflow for doing all these things, and they place a big emphasis, the company does, on identifying who are the big users, who are, like, for example, they might have a program. I don't know if Webflow actually has this, but other companies that do something similar will have a program to recognize a user who is an advocate, that so like they're, again, I don't know if Webflow does this, but like it would be like they're a Webflow expert, and they have a badge, and whatever it is. Like there's different ways of fostering your community so that it's not just I'm an isolated user using your product, but I also am part of this community and I actually help other people, and I'm recognized sometimes for the people who are frequent users and advocates and that type of thing, that they're recognized in some way, whether it's points that they have that they can use in some way, or social cred, or whatever it is. There's some type of inner economy too that occurs. There's different ways of doing it, but having a community definitely helps, because those people become invested in the product and they want to use it, and they help convince other people, and they're less likely to switch. And then finally, and honestly most importantly, is brand. So this is, I think, undervalued by a lot of people, unfortunately, but brand really matters over time, especially when you're in growth mode. So there's a lot that's part of this. I mean, there's a whole other area we can talk about, many different videos about building your brand. It's obviously heavily a marketing related area, but true brand management, it's not just marketing. I mean, that's part of the thing to understand, is that a really good brand, not just the name, not just what you put out for advertisements and that type of thing, it's sort of baked into like the essence of the product itself. So like the features that you build, everything around it is sort of baked around this brand, and it's easily identified. And that's the key unfair advantage, that when you have like a really, really strong brand, it helps prevent other people from catching up to you, because okay, you may have the same features, like some new person has almost exact copy of what you're doing, does everything the same, but when somebody compares the two, they're like, oh, well, yeah, but I definitely know this brand, A versus B. Like I definitely know brand A. Like I heard it before. I know exactly what it is. Like it's very clear. Where this other person, who is this? So a lot of times for most people, their unfair advantage over time ends up being brand. There are a lot of other things too that could be unfair advantages. Regulatory stuff that you overcome. So like in healthcare, for example, you have to be HIPAA compliant a lot of times in order to handle patient records, patient data. And so if your software is HIPAA compliant, that is a huge, huge hurdle to overcome. Someone else who starts out new, they can't do it. They cannot achieve that right away. They'd have to go through the same process you went through. So that's another example of the unfair advantage. And I'm sure there's many others you can think of. And that's it for the unfair advantage part of the Lean Canvas. Really enjoyed talking to you guys today. Leave your comments below, and I'll see you again next time on Tech Time Today.